Shukadeva Goswami is preaching to Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit is wondering, what is the duty of a human being, and especially at the time of death, what is a human being supposed to do? So Shukadeva Goswami is glorifying the very question. Your question is so important that it can benefit all kinds of people. Just the question. Atmavid samataha. Atmavid means transcendental, and samataha, it's approved. It's approved by all the spiritualists. This is the purpose of human form of life. And so Shukadeva Goswami is confirming the importance of this question, because all the transcendentalists, all the learned persons, they have confirmed that this is the purpose of life. We're going to have to move a little quickly and to cover it. This gives us to verse number 2. Shrotavya dhini rajendra nirnang shanti sahasrasha apashyatam atma tattvam griheshu grihamedinam. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. So Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit that the people, right, that are materially engrossed, right, materially engrossed, apashyatam, of the blind, right? Sahasrashaha, hundreds and thousands, apashyatam, atmatam, they're blind to spiritual life, and generally this is, 99.9% of the population. They don't have any interest, nor do they have any information about what the purpose of this human form of life. They consider the human form of life to be simply there for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And in order to do that, they work hard to earn money. So they spend their time earning money in the daytime, and at night in sleeping and trying to enjoy sex life. So Prabhupada's point is that, such a person, a materialist, acting like this, spoiling the human form of life by not inquiring about shrotavyas. Shrotavya means to hear, right? To inquire and try to hear. So what's the difference between such a person and an animal? This is the point. Nidraya hriyate naktam vyavhayena chabhavayaha divya charte haya rajan kutumbha bharanena cha bharanena va. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family members. So Srila Prabhupada talks in the purport that there's two things here. That there is the grihamedi, right? The envious householder, right? And then there's a grihasta. So a grihamedi is simply interested in sense gratification, whether it be his own immediate sense gratification or the extended sense gratification of his family members, right? So this is the grihamedi. Either their own sense gratification or extended sense gratification, they're interested in sense gratification. And they spend their time chasing after wealth so that they can enjoy sense gratification. This is a grihamedi. But there's also the Grihastha. Grihastha is an ashram, just like there's the Brahmacharya ashram, and there's the Vanaprastha ashram, the Sannyas ashram, there's the Grihastha ashram. So a Grihastha is not working for sense gratification, although from the outside it may appear that they are earning money and having family, but they have a different goal. Their goal is not different from the, Atma Vids, the transcendentalist, and that is to progress in spiritual life. Even though they're in the householder ashram, even though they're grihasthas, they understand that there's a purpose to this human form of life. And it's not meant simply for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's meant for a higher purpose. And as we go into these verses, we'll understand what that higher purpose is. But that's the difference between the grihamedi, the envious householder, and the grihastha. Next verse. Deha patya kalatradishu atma sainyeshu asatvaipi tesham pramato nidhanam pasyanapi na pashyati. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire to the problems of life, being too attached to the infallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Everybody in this material world, comes into the world and they're here for a certain time, and they have to leave, right? Nobody stays here permanently, right? Maharaj Yudhisthira was asked, what's the most amazing thing, right? And he replied that the most amazing thing in this world is that everyone sees that, everyday living entities are dying, right? In the olden days when people lived in the village, if somebody died, everybody would know about it. But now it's not so. They try to hide it. They put the dead body in the ambulance and go to the smashan so that, people don't see and stuff. But in the old days, they put them on the katya, and decorate them with some flowers and put on the shoulder. Nobody does that now in Bombay, right? Put on the shoulder and go to the smashan, right? And chant Ram Nam Satyahe, Ram Nam, right? So people get reminded. They see every day, right? This is going on. People are dying, right? See a dead dog in the street, right? But still, the most amazing thing is they're acting as if they're going to live forever, right? They make a house, right? The house should be very majboot, very strong, with bricks and cement and steel, as if they're going to spend so much time in that house. But they'll have to leave, right? Doing so many things to pamper the material body, but yet the material body is a temporary place, right? So, Yudhisthira Maharaj said, the most amazing thing is that people see every day, people are dying, living entities are leaving this world, they're going off to the Yamalayam, the court of Yamaraj, but yet they're acting as though they'll live forever. They're not going to die, they're going to live. Right? So this is the most amazing thing. And what people feel, I'm talking about the Grihamedis, what they think is that they're well protected by their children, and they're protected by their wealth, and they're protected by their material assets that they have. But all of these things are very nicely described here by Shukadeva Goswami as, what is it? Saineshu, Atma Saineshu, Asatvata, Asatvasapi. So that means that the Saineshu, fighting soldiers, Atma, own, At, Asat, She, Asatsu, Asat. Asat means that which is not permanent. Asatsu means something that's fallible. It's not what you think it is, right? It's not going to actually protect you. These fighting soldiers, that people think are going to save them, right? It's an illusion. They're not going to save, you know. At the time of death, what can anyone do to help the person at the time of death? Can anybody do anything?
Ask to remember him for chanting.
Yes, but people don't do that.
So they have to practice.
You know, at the time of death, they say, "Oh, God, save me." Before that, they're drinking, playing cards, and everything. In time of death, come, "Oh, God, save me." Wasting the human form of life. So they think that they're protected, but they're not protected by all these things. And due to foolishness, because they're not instructed properly. They don't have proper knowledge. What should be done? What should not be done? And also they have bad association. Right? You are what your association is. Sangat sajante kama. Sangat sanjayate kama. By your association, you will develop a desire. If you associate with people that play cards and drink and do all these nonsense things, that's what you'll do. If you associate with smokers, you'll smoke. You'll develop that desire by their sangha. So the point is to have good association, to have satsanga, not asatsanga. Right? Asatsanga is detrimental to spiritual life. And no one ever progressed by having asatsanga. So this is, Rupa Goswami also suggests in his Upadeshamrita that the advice is to not associate with persons who are interested in the asat, the temporary nature of this material world, and so-called advancement in this material world. So moving along, these are all very important verses that Srila Prabhupada many times used in his preaching. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyasya Chechatavayam. O descendant of King Bharat, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Super Soul, the controller, and the savior of all miseries. So here Shukadeva Goswami is giving the process. If you want to become free from asat sangha, if you want to be living in the reality and not in the illusion that, you know, something in this material world is going to save me, then this is the prescription. Is to hear about, glorify, and remember the personality of Godhead. And otherwise, you know, your destination is unknown. Right? You don't know where you'll go or what you'll do in your next life. Nobody knows. Nobody can say. Some persons, followers of the Vedic prescriptions, they try to perform Vedic ritualistic sacrifices so that they might be elevated to the heavenly planets in the Svarga Loka. But even if you do that, and actually in this day and age it's impossible to follow the Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, but even if you could, what would be the result? You'd go to the heavenly planets and spend some time there, and then have to come back to Mrityu Loka, birth and death, old age, disease. So what would be the benefit of that? It's like going on a trip. You want to go to Delhi, but before you go to Delhi, you take a side tour to Hyderabad, right? A detour. Right? And then you have to come back to Bombay and then go to Delhi. It's a time pass. Devotees see it as simply time pass. And just imagine if you went to the heavenly planets, right? There they live for a very long time. One day in the heavenly planets is 6 months here on earth, right? And after going there and living for such a long time, then you come back to this earthly planet. So look at the effects of Kali Yuga. And I've been living in Bombay for 35 years, something 35, 36 years. And I see how Kali Yuga is progressing. When I first came here, there were very few bars. There were very few, not many. I'm talking about 1970, 78, 79. They used to call them permit rooms. Remember? Permit room. There are few. Now how many bars are there? Every single corner, or sometimes all four corners, there's a bar. Right? It's increasing. Right? This is Kali Yuga. The effects of Kali Yuga are increasing. People had respect. You know, little children used to say, you know, uncle, you know. All that is going. Right? Why? Due to the effect of Kali Yuga. So just imagine if you went to the heavenly planets and lived there for 100,000 years and then came back here to Kali Yuga, what would it be like? How hellish it would be? Right? So this is not a good idea. You think, oh, I'll go to the heavenly planets, right? And I'll come and I'll enjoy. It's a foolish idea. Rather, one should try to understand how to hear about and remember the personality of Godhead, so that one can go back to his original place, which is in the spiritual world. Etavang Sankhya Yogebhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapung Sang Ante Narayana Smriti. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So people want to have some mystic powers, yogbhyam, and they practice for that, so that they can attain some powers. But what is the ultimate goal of this? The ultimate goal of this is to remember the personality of Godhead, especially at the end of life. There's this, you know, some of these Swamijis that are promoting yoga, pranayama, etc. But what is the goal of that yoga? The goal of the yoga is to remember Krishna, to be able to realize the Lord within the heart, the Paramatma. You know, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga system was for this purpose, to realize the Lord. It wasn't to cure your diabetes, improve your sex life, so that you'll be healthy. That's not the point. The point is just what this verse mentions, to be able to remember the personality of Godhead, especially when? Anta Narayana Smriti, at the time of death. Right? But people don't understand, and they're misled by all these so-called swamis, and you know, they never really understand what they're come here for, what their purpose is here for, and that way they simply waste their very precious, valuable human form of life. Prayena munayo rajam nivrita viris sedataha nirgunyastaram Gunanu katane hare. All of these verses are so practical in terms of devotional service. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulator principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. It mentions here the topmost transcendentalists, the liberated souls. They realize the Lord, and they take pleasure in describing the Lord. They take pleasure in talking about the Lord. And they understand that the Lord is a person. The impersonalists, who are simply concerned with the Lord's impersonal feature, they don't get that relish, they don't get that excitement about the Lord. Because ultimately we're all persons. The Lord is also a person, right? Everybody has their impersonal aspect, But everybody has their personal aspect also. So the transcendentalists that are only concerned with the impersonal aspect of Lord, it's not complete. It's complete when one has the personal realization of the Lord. So many of the swamis, our yogis, they're promoting the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. And in this way, they create dissatisfaction. They actually give rise to an impetus of sense gratification by emphasizing the impersonal, right? Because nobody can understand how you'll be happy in the impersonal conception, right? People have experienced that their happiness comes from interacting with others, right? If you're sitting in your house, right? After how long can you sit there before the idea comes, let me go out and meet somebody. Let me interact with somebody, isn't it? And you know, there was a study that went on for 75 years from, there were graduates from Harvard that graduated in the 1930s, right? So these graduates from Harvard University, you know, they're from upper, families with upper, higher income, right? They went to Harvard. So they studied them for 75 years, and there was 3 directors that came and died during the course of the study, right? They wanted to know what makes a person happy. So here these people, they had the advantage of education from Harvard University. They had money. So what was the conclusion? So every year they would interview these people, they would note down, they analyzed the data, and in the end of the day, what they concluded was that no one felt that material acquisitions, our material status, or anything like that was bringing them happiness, right? What they felt their happiness was coming from was that they could interact with people that they knew and they could depend on. Not that they always agreed with, but someone that they could depend on. This is what brought them happiness. So that coincides with this understanding that the ultimate happiness that a living entity can experience is a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who can be more dependable than Krishna? Right? Nobody. And all the relationships in this material world, they're temporary. Right? Just like sandcastles. The children are making a sandcastle on the ocean, and they're so absorbed in their sandcastle. Even if you tell them, okay, it's time to go home. No, right? But the ocean is coming, and the ocean carries away the whole thing, right? So the people in the world are like that. They're so caught up in their sandcastle. They don't see that the waves of time are coming to finish everything. It's like a child. Right? So, the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, these messages from Sukadeva Goswami are meant to wake us up. We should wake up and realize what is our actual position so that we don't get fooled again. Idham Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Aditavam Vaparadho Piturdhai Payanadaham. At the end of Dwarpara Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dvaiparayana Vyasadeva. So here we have Shukadeva Goswami giving a very definitive statement about the nature of the Bhagavatam, and is that that it's a topmost literature, right? And he is also explaining that it didn't come from him; he heard it from Vyasadeva, right? So it's coming through the line of disciplic succession, and that it's for the topmost sages and saintly persons. and that Maharaj Parikshit will benefit by hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, there's many more purports. I mean, there's many more points in the purport, and you'll go over those as, you know, gradually you go through each verse. But we're just kind of giving an overview today. Parinishtopi nirgunya uttama shloka lilaya grihita chaitarajarse akyanam yad adhitavam. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly and transcendent, yet I was still attracted through the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. And Shukadeva Goswami was in the womb of his mother, actually, when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam. And he lived in the womb of his mother for 16 years because he was situated in Brahman realization. And his consciousness was that, you know, inside the womb, outside the womb, it's all one. There's no difference. So he just stayed there. And Srila Vyasadeva was very concerned that his child was so long in the womb. So he brought to his house Krishna, and he came from Dwarka, and they discussed transcendental topics. Hearing those transcendental topics, Shukadeva Goswami became attracted, and he went above his level of Brahman realization, and relishing those topics, he came out of the womb to understand more. Right? That's how he was learned. So here he's describing, I was situated in perfect transcendence, right? No duality, happiness, distress, cold, heat, victory, defeat, shame, glory. It was all one thing for him. But because he heard the pastimes of the personality of Godhead, he became very much attracted by that. Tad aham te bhidhasyami mahaporushiko bhavan yasya shradhan hatam ya ashu shanmukunde mati sati. That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you, because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna, one who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. The word here is shraddhantam, one who gives full respect and attention. Srila Prabhupada talks in the purport how one can give full attention. You know, what is the process to give full attention, and the person who can give that rapt attention to the message of Srimad Bhagavatam will be the person to get the most benefit out of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Here Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the process should not, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats, whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into his disciple, as if surcharging him with electrical current. Right? One, so-called spiritualist, he put his hand on his disciple's head and, gave him some kind of current. And he said, "Now I'm empty. I've given you everything." This is what Prabhupada's referring to. That's nonsense. The amazing thing about spiritual life is that the more you give, the more you get. When you give to others what you have, you don't lose anything, right? It increases, right? If you have a little attachment to Krishna, and you describe the message of Krishna from Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, you don't become any less. In fact, it enhances whatever you have. So this is the misconception that's going around, especially here in India. At least in the West, they don't know anything, right? And so they're kind of a blank slate. But here in India, people have so much misconceptions that they've heard, this thing and that thing. So it's kind of like the person who went to the piano, or two persons went to the piano teacher. You know that story? So the teacher said, "You know anything about the piano?" And the student said, "No, I never tried." Right? Okay, your lessons are 100 rupees a day. The other one said, "You know anything about the piano?" "Oh yeah, I played, this and that." I said, "Okay, your lessons are 1,000 rupees a day." He said, "Why? It's 100. Because I have to help you unlearn everything you learned so that you can learn." Right? And this is the situation in India. So much they hear, Sai Baba, this one, that Baba. One time they asked Srila Prabhupada, "What about Guru Nanak?" And Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, Guru Nanak, yes. He was a devotee of Krishna. And even the Granth Sahib, they talk about Krishna and chanting the name of Krishna." So then they asked Srila Prabhupada, "What about Mira Baba?" Mira Baba. And Prabhupada said, "I don't know. There's so many bogus Babas." So this is the problem, in India, is that there's so much disinformation about spiritual life. People have to unlearn everything just so that they can learn it properly. Etan hir vidyamananam ichatam akuta vayam yoginam nripa nrinitam Hare Nanusankirtan. O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the waves of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. So the point is, whatever the situation a person may be in, one should chant the holy name of the Lord. Ichatam akuto bhayam. Fearless. One is chanting the holy name. They don't have any doubts. They don't have any fear. Why do people become fearful? People become fearful because they're on the bodily concept of life. Right? The body is temporary. It's very fragile. Anything could happen at any time. Right? Even young persons, they have a heart attack, they die on the spot. Right? Somebody gets diabetes, whole life becomes complicated. Right? All to do with this material body. So the more we're on the bodily concept of life, the more fear that we have. Why? Because our original identity is that we're eternal. We're eternal spirit souls. We're nothing to do with this material body. Right? Like Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamani srile. When the body dies, the soul doesn't die. It's eternal. So the more we think that we're this body, the more fearful we become. And the more we become free from the bodily concept of life, the more we become fearless. Right? Simple to understand, not complicated. So therefore, akuto bhayam, the fearless way to progress is through the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Srila Prabhupada explains in this purport about the different levels, persons who are desiring material enjoyment, even persons who are self-satisfied, and then the position of the devotees. And the position of the devotees is always the highest. Prabhupada gives a very long purport. It's, usually Prabhupada's purports are a page, max are half a page. This purport to this verse, just so you can understand how important this purport is. 1, 2, 3, 3.5 pages almost. So it's a very, very important purport. Kim paramatasya bahubhi parokshayar hayanayar eha taram mahurtam viditam ghatate shreyase yataha. What is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted and experienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. So this is, we can understand the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's the method for self-realization in this age, as we understand from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who quoted Hare Nama Hare Kevalam Kalo Nasteva 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 Gatiranyata, that this is the method of self-realization in this age. And so Shukadeva Goswami is also promoting this method. At this time, Krishna had already left the planet, and the effects of Kali Yuga were coming, right? So he was giving the essence for especially people in this Kali Yuga, as we chanted the verse, Manda Sumanda Mateo, Manda Bahagya. People are always disturbed. They're not very interested in spiritual life, right? So how for them to progress? And it's by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada explains that in the purport. What time is it? What time does the class go till? 9.
15 minutes question answer.
Okay. So, Katvango Namarajarshir Gyatve Yatang Ihayushaha Muhurtat Saram Udrishcha Gatavang Abhayam Harim. The saintly king, Katvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment, at once freed himself from all material desires and took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An intelligent person should always be aware of what their prime duty in life is, right? And we have many duties, if you think about it. We have many obligations, but there's a prime duty and there's a prime obligation. We have gotten a body by the combination of our mother and father, right? They've given us this body, they raised us, they gave us an education, they helped us to grow, right? So we have an obligation. Someone you take something from, you have an obligation to them. Just like you breathe air, right? Although nowadays it's not very clean, but we breathe air. And it doesn't belong to us. It's coming from the demigods. We drink water. So we have an obligation to the demigods. Everyone requires sunlight, right? You have to have sunlight. If you don't have sunlight, you can't maintain your health, right? People don't get enough sunlight, and therefore they have a vitamin D3 deficiency, right? And without vitamin D3, well, there's a lot of problems that happen in your health. So we require these things, and we take it from the demigods. Of course, the demigods get their power from Krishna. Ultimately, it's coming from Krishna. But we have an obligation to the demigods, to our parents, to our forefathers. So many obligations that are there. But we should not forget that we have a prime obligation, a prime duty in life, and that is that at the end of this life, we should be able to think of Krishna. We should be able to think of the Supreme Lord so that we can go back to the spiritual world. If we don't keep focused on that, right? And it's such an important duty that even if you can't fulfill obligations to others, if you fulfill this obligation of keeping focused on the purpose of this human form of life, the other obligations get taken care of. Right? If one worships Krishna, then all the demigods become automatically satisfied. You don't have to separately do that. Right? The greatest service that one can do for one's ancestors, for one's parents, is to become a devotee of Krishna. The example is Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad was tortured by his father because, why? He was a devotee. He was just a devotee. But he tortured. And ultimately Krishna appeared as Lord Nrsingadev to kill this Hiranyakasipu, his father. And Prahlad was such a devotee of the Lord asked him to take some benediction. And Prahlad said, no, I'm chanting your holy name. I'm rendering your devotional service. I'm quite fine. I don't need anything. And the Lord said, no, you take something. He said, my dear Lord, I'm not here like a shopkeeper, and give something to you, take something from you. That's not what I'm here for. But the Lord said, no, you must take something. He said, all right, if you want, then you please deliver my father. Here his father had tortured him, tried to kill him, but the Vaishnav character is so magnanimous that he's telling the Lord, who's offering him anything that he could want, you deliver my father. So Lord Nrsingadev replied, you don't worry, your 14 generations behind are all delivered by your devotional service. And your 14 generations in front are also delivered by your devotional service. So the highest benefit that one can give his relatives, parents, etc., is to become a devotee of Krishna. Everything will be taken care of. And we see later on, the relatives of Prahlad. One famous relative. Who can tell me who that relative? Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj got the mercy of Vamandev. Why? Because he was very qualified? He was qualified, very qualified. He could understand, even though Shukracharya was telling don't surrender, that this was not the right instruction, that he should surrender. He was qualified. But he actually got the mercy of Vamandev because he was the relative of Prahlad. Right? Later on, Banasura also, he was fighting with Krishna, and he was taking help from Lord Shiva, but Krishna spared him. He didn't kill him. Why? Because he was related in the same family of Prahlad. So the benefit that we can do, all of our relatives, our obligations to the demigods and others can be perfectly fulfilled by becoming a devotee of Krishna. Tavapyetahi kauravya saptaham jivitat upakalpaya tat sarvam tavadyat samparayikam. Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. The thing about Maharaj Khatvanga is that he fought for the demigods for many years, right? Fought against the demons. They had enlisted him in their war against the demons, and he fought. And they wanted to give him some benediction. So they asked Maharaj Khatvanga, please take some benediction. He said, okay, well, I'd like to know when I have to die. So the reply was from the demigods that in the next few moments, you will die. So taking advantage of that situation, he completely surrendered to Krishna and went back to the spiritual world. So we could surrender within a moment. Maharaj Khatvanga is the example of that. But the point is that our purpose is that we should surrender and not waste this human form of life. Maharaj Parikshit had 7 days, and Srila Prabhupada explains that he was very fortunate because at least he knew he had 7 days. We don't know for sure that we even have 7 hours, right? Anything could happen at any moment. So one has to be very cautious to use the time properly that we have in the service of Krishna. Anta kale tu purushaha agate ghata sadvasaha chindyad asanga shastrena spriham deha nuyechatam. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachments to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. You know, this is not an easy thing to do. And, you know, especially we see in the lives of our politicians, you know, they're right to the very end, they're into the politics. Now I think there's a movie coming out about Bal Thackeray or something, right? So he was into politics right up till the time he left this world, you know, and he couldn't give it up. But this is a warning here from Shukadeva Goswami that you don't want to waste your life in that way. And, you know, the material energy is such that everything will seem, you know, like, how will it go on without me? I have to just, Prabhupada talks about one very rich man in Yalalabad that he knew, and he was begging the doctor. He said, "Doctor, just give me four more years and I can complete my programs," you know. But it's not in the hands of the doctor, right? It's in the hands of Krishna. Even though proper medicine, the biggest doctor, we see still the patient dies, right? And someone who doesn't have all of those facilities, they sometimes live, right? So whose hand is it in? Whether we die, whether we live, it's in the hand of Krishna. So here Sukadeva Goswami is telling us that one should be bold enough, right, to not be afraid of death. And who's not afraid of death? Only the pure devotee of Krishna, right? And so therefore we should use our time to try to purify our existence in this life by remembering Krishna, by chanting His holy name, Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So all these topics will be very elaborately discussed in the purports of these verses from Srila Prabhupada. One should leave home and practice self-control in a sacred place. He should bathe regularly and sit down in a lowly place duly sanctified. To prepare oneself for the better next life, one must get out of one's so-called home. The system of Varnashram Dharma, or Sanatana Dharma, prescribes retirement from family encumbrances as early as possible after one has passed 50 years of age. Modern civilization is based on family comforts, the highest standard of amenities, and therefore, after retirement, everyone expects to live a very comfortable life in a well-furnished home, decorated with fine ladies and children, without any desire to get out of such a comfortable home. High government officials and ministers stick to their prized post until death, and they neither dream nor desire to get out of homely comforts. Bound by such hallucinations, materialistic men prepare various plans for still more comfortable life, but suddenly cruel death comes without any mercy and takes away the great plan maker against his desire, forcing him to give up the present body for another body. Such a plan maker is thus forced to accept another body in one of the 8,400,000 species of life, according to the fruits of the work he has performed. In the next life, persons who are too much attached to family comforts are generally awarded lower species of life on account of sinful acts performed during a long duration of sinful life, and thus all the energy of human life is spoiled. In order to be saved from the danger of spoiling the human form of life and being attached to unreal things, one must take the warning of death at the age of 50, if not earlier, and come every week to these classes. Right, Rufilas? Abhyasena manasa shudham tivrid brahmaksharam param mano yatschej chita swasho brahma bijam avishmaram. After sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the three transcendental letters, A-U-M, which means? Om. And by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed. Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, withdraw it from sense activities, and by intelligence the senses will be controlled. The mind, too absorbed in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada made these temples specifically so persons can have an opportunity to come and hear, right, hear, and have association, to chant, right, kirtan, and to be able to do some practical service for Krishna. So, it's not that you have to leave your home. If you can't leave your home, you can go, you can live in Vrindavan, you can live in Mayapur, that's very nice. It's great. But if that's not possible, you can come to the temple and you can get the same benefit by rendering in some practical service for Radha Ras Bihari. And it can be something very simple. But because it's in relationship to Krishna, one gradually, the hard knot that's within the heart for family attachment, it becomes loosened up. And the attraction for Krishna becomes strengthened more and more. So that's the benefit of having, the temple and being able to come to the temple and engage in activities in relationship with Krishna. So now it's 10 minutes to 9, and we can open it up for anything that you heard during the lecture that struck you as important or struck you as something that you were attracted to. You can mention that.
Prabhuji, before starting question answers, I'd like to ask, I'd like to give some introduction of Prabhuji. See,
wait a minute. Don't waste my time. I don't have a lot of time here.
No, not two bits, very important. It is, see, we are coming here, and most important thing that we learn in our classes, that your sadhana is required and mercy is required. And Prabhuji is a living example of a parampara. See, we say that we want to satisfy the parampara. We have never seen Prabhupada, but we are able to see the person who have sacrificed their life for Prabhupada last 35 years. Huh?
You don't have to see Prabhupada. What you have to do is hear from Prabhupada. You don't understand who is spiritual by looking at them. You understand who is spiritual by hearing from them, right? And Srila Prabhupada, his, effect on people simply by meeting one time is very significant, right? Why? Because a pure devotee of the Lord, and his only desire was to serve Krishna, to please his spiritual master. One time in Los Angeles, he told the devotees, I have no qualification. This is 1975. Already he had 108 temples. He had thousands of Westerners as his disciple, right? No sadhu ever did that before, right? So very, but he's saying, I have no qualification. I have no qualification. My only qualification is I tried to satisfy my Guru Maharaj, right? And he said that his Guru Maharaj told him that if you ever get money, print books. So Srila Prabhupada said that my request, you kindly help me. Right? He's telling his own disciple, you kindly help me. Translate these books into as many languages as possible and distribute them. And the Krishna Consciousness movement will automatically spread. That was Srila Prabhupada's faith. He met his Guru Maharaj when he was a householder and he was in Radhakund. He had his small child with him and he was walking with his Guru Maharaj. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explained to him that now we're building this big temple in Bagh Bazaar, the Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math marble temple. He said, I feel that we should sell the marble in temple and sell books, because some of his leading disciples were disputing who will get what room and who will get what office. So he told Srila Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. So Srila Prabhupada took that instruction to his heart. And he said he didn't know what would be the result. He followed that instruction blindly. But he saw the result, that by the sale and distribution of the books, the Krishna Consciousness movement was spreading all over. And so he encouraged them that the books are not just for selling, but they're also for reading. You must read my books. Encourage the devotee. You got to read the books. Why? Because by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, you're directly associating with Srila Prabhupada. The same benefit any disciple got, you can also get. There's no restriction. Prabhupada's, one time he came into an airport in Denver, Colorado, right? So all the devotees were there, and many newspaper reporters came to meet him, right? And whenever Srila Prabhupada came to the airport, there was hundreds of devotees, and they were leading kirtan, big kirtan, and there's an exciting thing. So the newspaper reporters came and said to Srila Prabhupada, "What will happen to your movement when you die?" So Srila Prabhupada said, "I will never die." And all the devotees went, "Haribo!" He said, "Because I'll live forever in my books. I'll live forever in my books." So one can associate with Srila Prabhupada immediately by reading his books and by understanding what's in his books. And if you want to make further advancement, then you try to help others get these books and understand these books. And very quickly you'll make advancement in devotional service. But it's like Srila Prabhupada felt that was his responsibility to do something to satisfy his Guru Maharaj. You have to have that kind of feeling that there's some, you have a debt. You have to repay the debt. Just like when you owe money to the bank, you have to make your EMI, isn't it? Every month you got to pay that EMI. But you feel that responsibility, you feel that burden, right? In the same way, when you take the spiritual life, you got to feel that burden. You got to feel that responsibility that I've taken something. I have to repay it, right? And if you have that mentality, very quickly we'll make advancement in devotional service. Our attraction to the material world will decrease, and our attraction to Krishna will increase. It's like the scale. You put the bananas over here, and right, the weights over here, and you can tell how much is. So if you have more bananas, it's going to go like that. And if you have more weight, it's going to go like that. So in the same way, if you have more attraction for Krishna, then your attraction for sense gratification and anything in this material world is going to go down. And the attraction, and it's just the opposite way. So we balance everything in spiritual life by trying to develop our attraction to the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and to Krishna. So, please, any questions? Let's open up.
It's very important to take the experience of Prabhuji, 35 years, how they are serving continuously. So that experience, you have to take some questions, because we want to go continue further in a spiritual life. So that determination, Prabhupada, BBD in charge, we get the books very nicely every year. But he is the brain, he is the force behind it. Every year. We do not know, but he is there. He is doing the Prabhupada services.
I've been in India for 35 years. Actually, I joined in 73, so it's like 45 years.
45 years. So, we should take, the...
But, that doesn't mean anything.
Experience, how
trees live for 100 years or 200. So there's no value just in number of years. But trying to use our time in the service of Krishna, that's important. So if you have any questions, please ask them.
Yes.
When we are reading books, we come across two words: prescribed duties, and which we are supposed to do, and then occupational duty. What is the difference?
Occupational duties in relationship to the service, which means Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. That's sort of the occupation, the varnas, right? A Brahmin has certain occupational duties. And what are those? It's one. Patan, Yajin, Gyan Pratigraha, right? These are the occupational duties of a Brahmin. To perform yajna, teach it to others, to study Shastra, teach it to others, right? And So these are the Kshatriya's occupational duty is different from a Brahmin. And a Vaishya's occupational duty, the main thing is to take care of cows, right? People call themselves Vaishyas. There's 3 activities of a Vaishya. One is to grow things, Go, Grishi, and Varnijam, right? But nowadays there's no cow protection and there's no growing, there's only Varnijam. See, Varnijam was not the main thing. The main thing was taking care of cows and growing things. Because by growing things, you can maintain yourself, especially grains and vegetables. And the refuge from grains and vegetables can be eaten by the cow. And the cow gives milk. So that's such a powerful food. One can maintain themselves. And the Varnijam came in when there was an excess, because there was more. Right? So that's the occupational duty of the Vaishya. And the Shudra is meant to assist the others, right? And the prescribed duties, that's what you wanted to know. What's the difference between occupational and prescribed duties? So prescribed duties come like, you should, and it's for everyone, you should rise early in the morning, you should take a bath, you should think of Krishna. These are prescribed duties. These are duties that are meant for everyone who's a human being, right? And, you know, to chant the holy name of Krishna, you should worship the Lord. Right? These are meant for everyone. So that's the difference between an occupational duty, that's in relation to your Varna. And the other one is in relation to everyone, that they should have that culture to be progressive in spiritual life. Is that okay?
My question. Prabhu, can you explain your attraction towards Prabhupada? What attracted you to Prabhupada? And after 45 years, what is that thing which keeps on moving you? So that, you know, we are going to go in future. What is that thing that we should be keeping our mind to go on future?
Well, the initial attraction was the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, which came, you know, devotees from devotees. Devotees said chant, and I began to chant. So I think that was the initial attraction, was the chanting, because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, we could become, it's devotional service, so you become free from your anxieties by rendering devotional service. And that was very attractive. What continues is that we somehow or another feel some relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Even though he's not physically present, he's always present, right? He's present by his instructions. He's present by his Vani with what he wanted us to do. And if we try to adhere to that, then he's with us. When Srila Prabhupada was coming to Mayapur, he went straight. How many have been here been to Mayapur? Raise your hand. Who's been to Mayapur? Oh, a lot of people haven't been. You have been. Okay. So when you come into Mayapur, you know, you come by the Gaudiya Math centers, and then you come to, you know, Mayapur Chandradaya Mandir. So before that, you pass Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Samadhi, right? It's in the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math. So he went straight. He drove in, and he went straight to Mayapur Chandradaya Mandir. And later on, he heard that one of his godbrothers criticized him because he didn't stop and offer obeisances to the Samadhi. And Srila Prabhupada heard that. And what he told the devotees is that, you know, I always felt that the Samadhi was not sufficient to glorify Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then he said, but you know, what they don't realize is that I'm always with my Guru Maharaj. He's always with me, he's always guiding me, right? That they don't understand, right? were seeing things in a very kind of mundane way, that he had to get out of his car and go into the samadhi, when in his 24 hours he's with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by always remembering his instructions and trying his utmost to follow them, right? Never forgetting that. So that's an important thing to realize, that we can always be with Srila Prabhupada, and by trying to follow his instructions, try to understand. When you go through these purports, try to understand them, you know, and apply them in our lives, and we'll automatically, Srila Prabhupada will take care of us. He'll be there. He'll guide us. He'll put us in situations where we make the right choices. Life is a matter of choices. You know, you can choose to go this way or that way. But if the basis of our existence is Srila Prabhupada's instructions, we'll choose the right thing. We'll choose the progressive thing, to be progressive in spiritual life. Anything else?
Prabhuji, there are two words which we oftenly go in ISKCON, that is the Krishna Prema and Krishna Bhavana. What is the spiritual meaning of both of it?
Krishna Bhavana, Prabhupada translated as Krishna Consciousness. And Krishna Prema means love for Krishna. So basically they mean the same thing. Unless you have love for Krishna, you can't be Krishna conscious. Unless you have Krishna consciousness, there's no meaning of Krishna Prema. Be conscious of Krishna out of love. Well, you know, Kamsa was also conscious. He was very Krishna conscious, but it was negative. He wanted to kill Krishna, right? He was always trying to figure out how to kill Krishna. He never forgot Krishna, but it's negative, you know. So it should be positive thinking of Krishna. How I can serve Krishna. What can I do to please Krishna, right? Let me make some kheer for Krishna, Mother Yashoda thought. And she was so fixed on making the kheer for Krishna that she took the milk from the best cows, the sweetest milk from the best cows, right? And she got that milk, and now she was making kheer. It was on the stove, right? But Krishna was hungry, and he was like, feed me, right? So the milk was on the stove, and she was feeding Krishna. Then the milk began to boil over, and it's the best milk, right? And she wants to make it so nice for Krishna. So she put him down to go see the milk on the stove, and he got upset, right? And he began to cry, and then he became more frustrated, right? And he began to break the yogurt pots. This is all transcendental love, right? It's very difficult for us to understand that intensity of love for Krishna because of our past conditioning. But gradually, through the process, as Shukadeva Goswami is mentioning here, Shrotavyasya, Kirtavyasya, by chanting, by hearing, gradually, we can have that love for Krishna. Of course, along with that, we require kripa. We require the mercy of the devotees, mercy of Krishna. Then it'll be possible. Otherwise, it's never possible. Yeah.
So we are doing this sadhana and bhakti and devotion service. How to judge ourselves whether we go in the right direction, and what is our status, in your opinion?
Well, it's not. My opinion is of no value. But Srila Prabhupada's opinion, Shastra's opinion is that just like if you have a fever, you take a thermometer and you see if you still have the fever. So the thermometer for Krishna consciousness is how much we're attracted by sense gratification. And then the less we're attracted by sense gratification, the closer we are towards the goal of love for Krishna. It's concomitant, you know. As your attraction for Krishna increases, your attraction for anything in this material world, whatever it is, it'll be reduced.
Hare Krishna. What are the things that slow down us in bhakti, that in 45 years of your experience that we should protect, that if we want to go, that we should be very careful about?
Well, those things are all mentioned in the Upadeshamrita. Have you ever done a class on the Upadeshamrita?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's all mentioned there. Associating with non-devotees is one thing, and so Rupa Goswami lays it all out there very carefully. And if we follow that, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam, engaging our tongue and chanting the holy name and talking about Krishna, these are the things that are, and when we don't do these things, then the tongue becomes obstacle, right? If you always eat Krishna Prasadam and talk about Krishna, then the tongue is very conducive thing. But if you don't take Krishna Prasadam and eat any nonsense thing, or talk any nonsense thing, then the tongue becomes a burden, right? It becomes a blockage. It becomes a hindrance. It becomes an obstacle, right? So these are the things. We have these things. We should use them in the service of Krishna. We have ears, hear about Krishna. We have eyes, see Krishna nicely dressed in the temple, right? We have nose, smell the incense, that's offered to Krishna. Smell the flowers offered to Krishna. So we should offer nice, fragrant flowers to Krishna, flowers that have fragrance. Krishna likes it very much. And then you can smell those flowers, engage in your senses.
What about Apparat, Prabhu? How to save ourselves from the Apparats? Vaishnava Apparats?
Well, maybe I should hear from the group what they think about Apparat. What is it, Apparat? In Hindi, it's any kind of illegal thing, right? Apparat. Breaking the law, that's Apparat, right? You have to get a fine because you have a traffic apparat. They'll give you a challan, 100 rupees. So maybe 200 rupiah, 300 rupiah dena padega. Traffic apparat. So what does it mean, Apparat? Who can tell me? Offense. It's an offense, right? What are the offenses? What are the kind of offenses?
To hurt a devotee.
What's that? Nam Apparat. Vaishnava Apparat. Dham Apparat. Okay, then? Seva Apparat. Seva Apparat. Yeah. And all are mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The offenses that you can perform in seva, right? So we have to be careful and to avoid offenses to the holy name, avoid offenses to devotees, and avoid offenses to the deities. And if we do that, then very quickly we can make progress towards the goal of becoming Krishna conscious, so that at the end of this life we'll be able to think of Krishna. Anta Narayana Smriti. If you've done that, you have won the game. You're successful. If you didn't do that, you're unsuccessful. You lost the game, right? And we all lost the game in our last life. We're losers. Let's face it, we're losers. We lost. We blew it. Now Krishna has given us another chance. Are we going to blow it again? Are we going to make it this time? We all need each other's help. We're a community. We're a society. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We're here to help each other, right? Get to become winners out of this life. Right? Not material winners. Everything you have to leave behind anyway. your family, your house, your bank balance, your whatever it is. You can't take it with you, right? But being a winner is that you think of Krishna at the time of death and you go back to Krishna, right? You have to have that. First of all, you got to want to go there. Right now, we don't really want to go there. Let's face it, we don't really want to go there. Do we? You know, we kind of like having our little things, you know. I like my what do you call, my grandchildren, or my, you know, we kind of like, you know, all these things, right? But for the devotee that's just fixed, only one thing, want to get back to Krishna, back to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead. That's the name of the magazine, right? So we don't even have that desire to go back home. We, you know, Rupa Goswami talks about the nectar devotion of the Asha Bandha, to pray for the desire, to have a desire to go back to the spiritual world. Asha Bandha, right? But by having association, by doing kirtan, gradually we'll get that desire. Okay, it's 9:15. Thank you very much for listening. Hare Krishna. And